A closer look now at the cross-examination of Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan. I'm joined now by political and social analyst Tessa Dooms. Tessa, thanks so much for joining us. I want to just reflect on that quote, "Grow up, Mr. Gordhan, don't be cheeky." How does that feel, Mr. Gordhan? Of course, Dali Mpofu was referring to the fact that that is in a transcript where the Public Enterprises Minister told Tom Moyane to grow up, and he's implying that the Public Enterprises Minister is racist. What did you make of today's testimony? There were so many convoluted arguments, so many arguments that seemed to go away from the main points, and a lot of unpleasant interchanges. What did you make of it all?
Well, besides the fact that I think the overall tone was unfortunate, I certainly think that while it says a lot about the way in which Tom Moyane, as effectively a DG at that point, and Pravin Gordhan as minister interacted with each other, I don't think Dali Mpofu made a strong case for, number one, racism per se, but number two, the ways in which it then connects into a broader narrative of state capture. But it is concerning the way the two interacted with each other. And I kept thinking about that idea that Minister Pravin Gordhan believed that, you know, how dare you speak to me because I'm a minister, how dare you speak to me this way or that way? Because it says something about the way in which we treat our politics and our politicians as if they are kings and queens and masters as opposed to public servants, and they see themselves that way as well. And you have these two very powerful people in two very powerful positions effectively having a petty squabble about their egos and who should be regarded with more decorum or less decorum, when effectively Rome is burning, when we have a country that has had constant crisis for the last 20 years at least. And we really don't need, whether it's a DG, whether it's a minister, whether it's a president, we don't need politicians and political figures and people who we elect into government to be having petty squabbles, making allegations they can't substantiate, and putting us as the public secondary to their own egos, status, and their sense of superiority or entitlement.
Mpofu asked Gordhan if he has proof that Tom Moyane was trying to further state capture, because in previous testimony he suggested that that is exactly what Tom Moyane was doing. Gordhan didn't have any specifics. Of course, we do know about the Nugent Commission, which detailed massive problems at SARS under Moyane. I'm wondering who came out looking better today. Was it Pravin Gordhan or Tom Moyane or Dali Mpofu?
I mean, I think answering that question is really like drawing straws. You know, you could come up with anything at that point. But two crucial things were canvassed today, and that was, what is the definition of state capture? And we must remember that not all corruption, by virtue of being corruption, is state capture. Sure, corruption is wrong, but not all things that are corrupt is state capture. Not all incompetence is state capture. And as Dali Mpofu put it very well, not even insubordination is by virtue of being wrong state capture. And I think Pravin Gordhan was unable to give a crisp understanding of what he's calling state capture versus what he's not thinking of as state capture. But his inability to back up claims like Moyane's been meeting up with the Hawks, and Moyane is answering to higher authorities or feels emboldened by political figures higher than himself, is a very big problem. He did use the word gossip. He did use the word coffee shops. And one of the things about the credibility of this commission is that it highly depends on a lot of people telling us the backstories in political rooms, telling us credible versions of things that are not going to be documented all the time. But you cannot go to the point where you say, well, it was gossip and things that I heard in a coffee shop from someone who heard something from someone. We've already gone through this mess before when we had the fakey mentors of the world, testimony just falling apart, because so much of this is dependent on having people that we can rely on for credibility. And today, between the hostility and the inability to just state things factually and being very, very, very evasive, the minister did not come out well.
And what did you make of the way Deputy Chief Justice Zondo handled it? Because at one point, everything was stopped because the line of questioning was bringing in Jacob Zuma, and that seemed to be problematic because it wasn't at all the ambit of what the cross-examination was meant to focus on. How did Zondo do in handling all of this?
When we consider that it was meant to be a 2-hour cross-examination, and now we are sitting on plus 6 hours and we're still not done, Chief Justice, or Deputy Chief Justice Zondo has given a lot of leeway. I suspect because he feels a lot of political pressure hinges around this because of the kinds of things that's happened with President Zuma, himself as a witness, with the pitting in the public against Zuma versus Pravin Gordhan and those kinds of things. And he's trying to balance those things out with the opportunity to give Tom Moyane the opportunity to clear his name, if that's what he's trying to do, and give Pravin Gordhan the opportunity to give the information that he has. Where I think that he urged today is I think there's been too much latitude and too much leeway given, especially when you've had situations where either the evidence leader and the cross-examiner in this case has clearly overstepped the marks of what was supposed to be covered in this cross-examination, or Pravin Gordhan just went on rambles, went on prepared speeches of things he's either said before, things that he felt he wanted to say today, even when he was not asked. I do think we lost control of the commission today in a way that was unnecessary. But I do believe it's because there are political considerations. And the problem with that is, for too long, this country has had our competence as a government, our taxpayer money, and things that are supposed to be working in our favor be distracted by politics. And today, again, we had political theater that cost the state money. Millions were spent today on political theater, which is just not productive.
When you say political theatre, are you suggesting that because of Dali Mpofu's political affiliations to the EFF, he brought that into play at all?
I'm actually not. I'm talking about Pravin Gordhan as a minister and as a political actor. What has been a trend throughout is that if we think about the politicians who have come before the Zondo Commission, the majority of those politicians have started with an opening statement of their own, and much of that opening statement has been about political posturing. I think Pravin Gordhan made many attempts today at political posturing, particularly the kind of posturing that says there were factional battles. What happened around me was about politics and not about the law, and I am not involved in state capture. That's political posturing. I don't doubt that Dali Mpofu has his own political views, his own political motives. But remember, he represents Tom Moyane. And what Gordhan and Moyane are basically representing here are two factions of the ANC. The EFF aside, they're kind of just a cherry on the top here if they feature at all. But we were looking at a factional battle of the ANC playing itself out through a proxy of Dali Mpofu and Judge Zondo.
Very quickly, the investigative unit came up towards the end of the session. A lot of people making something of that, saying, finally, Pravin Gordhan's talking about the rogue unit. But he was making the point, and I think this has been made very clearly before, that the unit within SARS was legal. Tell us more.
So I think it was also it was good that we were reminded again that was already taken off the table by Judge Zondo a few months ago when he said it isn't within the ambit of this commission because it's been covered and traversed so many times. And I would be, again, wary to say that it doesn't matter. I think all of those things matter, but I think they took up too much time today that could have been spent elsewhere. Again, the question about what Tom Moyane is trying to accomplish, on the one hand, yes, he's trying to clear his name, but he clearly has, and they clearly have, as Pravin Gordhan and Tom Moyane, a personal issue with each other, and he was using this to definitely put Pravin Gordhan on the stand, as it were, in a way that is front and center.
Well, thank you so much for giving us some insights into a very long Monday at the State Capture Commission. That was political and social analyst Tessa Dooms.